Well,
I have
wait.
an entry. Try it.
Hey, so we have an entry video that we were going to try, but maybe not. And so welcome to the Game Changing Work Show with myself, Veronica, and Roxana. And so
Yeah.
we're always challenging and trying to push the envelope in the sense of thinking about changing the future of work. And so there are a lot of things that are out there today, and we get really creative of the topics that we cover. It could be more process or technologies or what organizations are doing, but we always are centering back to people. And it's really about bringing the human to work. So today's topic, folks. Hey, Jenny, welcome to the show. And today's topic, and I would love for all of you that are watching right now to chime in, participate, share your thoughts, because we brought this subject of gaslighting, right, Roxanne? I was like, oh, this is a saucy topic.
It
And,
is.
and really talking about the 7 signs of your workplace's abuse. And we basically took some articles, right, from Psychology Today and other things out there. These aren't things that we made up. And it was really just to start talking about it because I thought it was ripe for the picking. And I posted this, and I don't, you saw my, well, you always see my post. I see your post, that I was talking about 2021 being the year of action.
Yeah.
And what I was talking about in the year of action is that a lot of us had a lot of time to think in the past year. And we may not be able to pull the switch like this, but we're starting to realize something's making us unhappy. Great, we might have to solve the money equation, but once we solve that baby, watch out. And so gaslighting is probably just one of the many things that is dear to a lot of people when they talk about inclusive and diversity and everything that's out there. But it's one of the items that would be on the list that's going to push somebody over the edge to take action, or they're already planning to take action. And
Exactly. I mean, how often, and it starts to happen exactly what you said before. It starts to happen more often that people take action. So maybe, just maybe, they had thought about this before, but with the slow year that we had in 2020, in that inner focus, people had time not just to think about it, but to plan for next action steps. So we're actually going to see more action happening on this front from now on.
so, great question, Jenny. And we need to answer it because you know what? When I first came across this topic, I was actually watching somebody on YouTube that is a neuroscience, and she has this channel, and she had it on gaslighting, and that kind of caught my attention. So maybe I'm actually slow to the crowd, but if you don't, if those of you that don't know, welcome to my world. And so I'm going to read the definition here. So it's a form of psychological manipulation in which a person or a group covertly sows seeds of doubt in a targeted individual or group, making them question their own memory, perception, or judgment. So think about when you are working and self-doubt has come in. Now, this is not self-doubt like internalized that you created it. This is the environment based on those individuals perpetuated and were the catalyst of this self-doubt. And one of the things that I put in my post is when I talk about insecurities, sometimes, when you have both parties, because a lot of the gaslighting is actually stem from, and this is my opinion, I am no psychologist, it stems from people that are insecure. It's like the bully at school, right? They always say, oh, the most of the time that people are bullies are actually because they're insecure people.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about, and think about like gaslighting when you were in high school. And remember the Mean Girls movie? That is where the vision in my head of like gaslighting 101.
Yeah.
of all these things that we see on movies and TV, and where you get that a lot, right? So when we are talking about the subject, we are like, you know what? This would be a great thing to talk about the 7 signs that they have documented out there today. and see if things start to fall in, because we may not either realize we're being gaslighted on the job, or we've come to a point thinking that that is business as usual, and we just accepted it, right? Like that's the way it should be. So,
And I think
yeah.
what you said is so true. And it's not just, for people who are insecure. There was this experiment that was done, I think it was in the 70s, and it's called the elevator experiment. I think if you look for it, you will find it all over the YouTube. And it's amazing how it shows that our desire to be part of the group is so much stronger than our desire to be right about something. So you would have all of these people who don't face the door in an elevator. They just face the wall. And then the one person who doesn't know what's going on, who looks at all these people and wonders, why are they not facing the door? And why am I the only one facing the door? And by the end of the elevator ride, you have everybody turning their back to the door. And this other person just doing whatever the group was doing because they want to be part of the group. So that's why gaslighting also works, because we go in an environment at work. We're in a community. We want to be part of that community. We don't want to be excluded. So anything that threatens our belonging to the group or to that community that we want to be a part of because we chose it, that is going to have a tremendous effect on us, and it's going to be traumatic.
Yeah, and I love that because it's different. We're going to explain these examples, but they even put it in the notation in a lot of these articles that it's all situational. And I'm actually reading a book that talks about lab profile, and this is a thing that stemmed off of NLP, their neuro-linguistic programming. And part of that, I haven't finished the book yet, so part of that is what we call internal versus external in one of the categories. And what this means is that this might be a different variance between all of you, where if you're highly external, to Roxana's point, you're going to care what other people think. You might be the person that is always wanting other people's opinion before you make a decision or what might have you. Internal people actually create their own realization for themselves, and they don't really need a lot of feedback. And I'm probably shortchanging this explanation, but this is why when we're going to talk about the subject, I wanted to create a disclaimer. It's highly situational to the individual and what is actually happening. But we just wanted to get you guys to think about things. How's that?
As
Imagine
usual.
that. So I'm gonna get us started with the first one here. Persistent negative narrative.
Oh yeah.
So this is about the gaslighties, performance, credibility, product, or service. Typically, the negativity is based on personal judgment and biased accusations rather than facts and validity.
Oh yeah. The personal attack versus constructive feedback. How often do we get that? How often have you seen that? No? Nobody?
Never.
Okay.
When I look at that, I'm almost like, oh my God, I'm probably a gaslighter too. I mean, that's horrible to say, but I'm like, wow. And
that's why we're doing this, right? For self-awareness as well, not just awareness.
And I'm okay to admit it,
Yeah,
if I'm the ass, right? I'm gonna admit I'm the ass. But and so when I read this, it really gets me to start thinking. I'm like, it's so true, because when we start to personalize something, and again, I always say perception is projection. Is that, are we coming from it more in a very neutral way? And I remember Nat, when she came on the show talking about communication, she talked about this a little bit on there. And so, persistent negative narrative. So guess what the second one is?
Biased. Biased. Okay, go for the second one.
All right, so second one is persistent negative gossip.
Okay.
And this is
good old
about the
gossip.
gaslighting's professional or personal characteristics.
Mhm.
Ongoing negative gossip. And this could be passive aggressive.
Really?
That never happens. So tell me, all of you that are out there, gossip
No, never.
never happens.
Mm.
When I read that, I was like, am I in high school again? Do you see where some of those mean girls in high school shows are starting to, come up? It's like, is that the bedding ground of learning how to be a professional gaslighter? Is you learn it during those
Um,
years?
well, I think it's a necessary condition to learn that. But I also feel that,
I'm being facetious, folks.
when we talk about gossip in the workplace, that's interesting because that's actually another way in which we choose to be part of one group or another. But the thing is, how biased is gossip? I mean, we talked about continuous negative perception. Well, talk about gossip in this case and how biased that is.
Yeah.
When you talk about somebody and how personal that gets, and when you talk about somebody in negative terms and they're not even there to defend themselves, and
And
you
it's
can say pretty much anything.
And it's really hard because we all need to vent, right? Talk about our frustrations. And I think it's probably the context and the intent and the situation that you're in, right? Are you talking to
Mhm.
somebody that is in confidence and the conversation is in confidence, which means it's only between the two parties? And the
Yeah.
person actually has a neutral disposition where they're not judging anything, right? It's kind of like lay on the couch, listen, let me hear your problems kind of friend, right? Or co-worker. So I think in this case, and this is just me kind of thinking out loud, they're talking about the other type of situations where you are venting, but then it's almost like putting, Smokey the Bandit, putting something on
Hmm.
a fire and it just goes poof, right? And
Yeah.
and then it starts getting out throughout the office or talk about personal situations. You
Hmm.
kind of brought it up to the wrong person.
Exactly. And I'm so glad that it's there and it's number two. I'm also not surprised because how often do we see that happening? Well, not us, of course, not in some of the workplaces that we know, but other people in other workplaces, of course.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awful, Jenny. When
Yeah.
all of us need someone that we can say anything to, and they are just like I said, the lay on the couch person,
Hmm.
right? That you can spill that, because if you don't have anyone you trust, it's a very lonely place to be. And
Yeah.
any of you that ever feel that way, it's almost like you want to reach out. Like LinkedIn platform community is
Hmm.
dial a couch friend, right? To be able to be that person, because I think we all need that. I think that's
Yeah.
important. That's a really good thing to point out. Are you
It
guys ready
is.
for number 3?
Let's go.
Persistent negative public comment or publicity. And this is
Mhm.
in face to face, online, individual, group meetings, memorandums, reports, performance evaluations, customer client reviews, and etc. And negative branding smearing is largely based on falsehoods or exaggerations rather than concrete evidence and facts. Oh my God.
Mm.
Okay, even just on a social platform that we're on right now, actually we're streaming across multiple. So those of you, wherever social platform you're on, how many times have you ever looked at a post and then you go and you look into these comments, how much gaslighting's happening there?
Yeah. That actually made me really sad. When you were reading that, I felt so sad because I realized how often this is happening and how present it is in our daily lives. And
It's awful.
sometimes we don't even think about it, you don't even realize it. And the fact that we don't even realize it, that means that it's gained a sense of normalcy, that we got used to it, that we don't even realize it's there. And that, to me, that's so devastatingly sad, to be honest.
And I want to make a disclaimer. There's a difference between intellectual debate, but again, that's going back to facts or trying
Yeah,
to relay the facts.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's okay if somebody's like saying, well, actually, the fact is this, right? Sometimes we get them
Hmm.
wrong. I'm one of those. And I don't say I know everything, but it's when it starts to become vicious. I've had friends on platforms that they've taken down a post because it's gone there and it just got
Yeah.
ugly.
Yeah. It's an attack. It's a personal attack, and it's constant.
And so let's talk about workplace, since this is what the subject's about. Have you guys ever, now IMs, right, Teams, all these things that people are using, or emails, that it's just got out of hand and it got ugly?
I've seen that happening a few times.
It's
And
actually, yeah.
the thing with emails, though, we should know by now that we are not supposed to argue via email.
But people
Emails are not
do.
for that, but people still do. Because, yeah, we do have different preferred communication styles. And maybe I'm a better writer than you are, and I prefer having a conversation in writing. But the thing is, you cannot have an argument via email, because email means that we're apart from each other. It puts the distance between us. And that's why a lot of times we say things in an email that we wouldn't normally say in a face to face conversation. If I looked you in the eye, would I say this to you?
Yeah, and you know what? I just had this conversation with someone where I'm kind of worried about our future generation when it comes to this topic, because they're so used to
Mhm.
communicating over social media, these apps or whatever. I mean, it's crazy. Even like dating, like I was having this conversation that like, when do people even know how to, like, if you're out at a bar, go up to someone and have a conversation, or do you have to get on an app and do it? And so I'm
Yeah.
wondering right now, like, how much this is becoming more prevalent. So to your point, is it only going to get worse because people don't know how to talk to each other?
I think I can definitely see that happening with the amount of texts that people are sending these days. Yeah, I'm gonna ask you over a text if you want a drink or you want a coffee or whatever it
And
is.
I know I'm kind of lazy sometimes, but I'm not afraid to actually have a conversation with an individual. That's probably because I grew up in an era. That's what you do, right? That's the honorable thing. And it's
The
like,
honorable
I'm not
thing.
afraid. I'm not afraid to face things head on if I need to.
Yeah,
Even if I'm the one at fault. But
but
it's so amazing how the dodging, because the ability to
mhm,
do that. And you wonder, when we talk about persistent negative public comment and publicity, it's so hot, it's so easy to hide beyond a veil through all these
yeah,
medium channels that I'm talking
yeah,
about, to be an
mhm,
asshole.
yeah,
Yes,
it
I said
is.
it, asshole.
And Jenny said, she said, just deleted my post here. And so, like, she's directly impacted by this. And I've seen this happening a lot. And again, that is so sad, because that means that we don't care about the fact that we're actually hurting a person. We forget that we're talking to another person here. That's what
Yeah.
this
Now,
perceived distance does.
here's one that, even though some people think that's their way, and this is something that we all probably can sit back and think, because again, context is king to the people that you're doing. So here's
Yeah.
number 4: persistent negative humor and sarcasm.
Mm. Hmm.
When
Yeah.
somebody's saying something and it feels insulting, oh, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Hmm.
Are you?
Well, are you?
so
Are you
expressing
really?
expressing hostility or condescension disguised as humor and sarcasm to tease,
Hmm.
mock, belittle, and marginalize the gaslighting.
Yeah.
How many of you guys ever have dealt with that, either personally, or at work? I bet you a
Hmm.
lot of us would say yes. And probably at some point you were the gaslighter as well,
Yeah.
because we just thought it was a norm.
Yeah.
But how many of you
Or
felt like total, like, it did not feel good what they said, and then it was followed up with a just kidding?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that is sarcasm is a clear sign of aggressive communication.
Yep.
That is, if you hear it, you know that that's aggressive communication, because there's a difference. That's the clear distinction that we can make between aggressive and assertive communication. Aggressive uses sarcasm, assertive uses sense of humor. And the difference is so big because sarcasm attacks and puts me in defense mode, or
Yeah.
at least it makes me uncomfortable. A sense of humor is where we both laugh at that. If only one of us is laughing, something's wrong in the conversation.
And it could be a learning for all of us, right? I'm not
Yeah.
like I said, we're all human, but when you start realizing, ooh, what I said might not have been good,
Yeah.
that's a good start. We're all human.
Yeah.
Number 5. Persistent professional exclusion, i.e., invisible professional segregation, good old boys system, in-group bias, the glass ceiling, the bamboo ceiling, whatever, tortilla? I never even heard of that. Anyways, so
do we have ghosting anywhere in there? I'm wondering. Because
so
that should be part of the conversation too.
yeah, so it's I'm sure those you guys probably never really thought about that being considered gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
We just thought that was the norm, or oh, that was like long time ago. Well, I guess like I said, how many of us probably grew up thinking gaslighting was probably normal, and then we're starting to
Yeah.
realize it's not normal, but probably didn't realize it was even in this category.
I mean, we wouldn't even think about placing it in a category or another. It was just there. And it was something that, take it or leave it. Nobody's forcing you to stay here. You don't like it, go somewhere else. That was the
And
perception.
I've talked to both sexes, different scenarios. So I don't think it's just one way or the other, where you might be a female and you're with a group of men and there's this dominance, right? And then you're feeling like you have to bring out your masculine energy to be in their level, and you don't like it because it changes who you are on a natural state. I don't know if any of you guys ever felt that. That could be the opposite, where I've seen that you have a lot of females expressing their masculine energy in a situation where the male is actually feeling that. And so that I could say is not just a good old boys. It goes either way is what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah, it really does. And
I don't believe in one way.
it. I don't know how many of you have gone through that, but definitely I felt it. In high school, in my class, we were 28 girls and 2 boys. So you can imagine. You can imagine. Yeah, exactly. That's what everybody says. And there's a reason for that. And it's just it's not just the poor 2 boys, but it's the dynamic was absolutely incredible. It was madness. It was absolute madness, because you have all of these people, all of these girls, all of these ladies who would act differently depending on the context, and those boys who would feel isolated from the crowd or the pack. So it was an all girls club, not boys club. So yeah, pretty tough. Tough.
So number 6.
Yes.
Persistent, verifiable bullying. So this one's probably in your face, obvious, the intimidation at the workplace.
Yeah.
Right? You don't like the way I talk, so who else is going to hire you? Right? Like the very evident, obvious in your face on there. I think unless, it's crazy. In corporate world, if you have HR, I think if you don't have HR, then you might be in organizations that might be a little bit more bendy in this, and you might experience this today. I'm really surprised in organizations that have an HR that's in place and really functioning, that this exists in a lot of corporate world today, because they're very highly sensitive about these type of situations, right? But I can tell you right now, and me, most of the time, been in corporate world, where the restaurant industry, my husband was in the restaurant industry, and I would be baffled. I was like,
Mhm.
oh my God, that happens?
Yeah.
Like, these things that we're listing were like, this is all common in their world. Like, because there's no,
Yeah.
like, nothing to stop unless you're probably corporate HR, a restaurant. But that industry would probably check the boxes and all of that. It amazes me. So those of you that are in industries, I guess is my point, how many of you guys are experiencing that? Because there isn't anything to really stop it, in truth.
Yeah.
But again, why would you even want to stay in that is what my next question would probably be. I mean, that's awful.
That's a real question. I think, as you said, a lot of people really start thinking about it. I've seen it happening in different kinds of industries.
Yeah.
Uh, Top corporate organizations sometimes. And the thing is, it really depends on what the priorities of that organization are.
Good
Um,
point.
and I think because I've seen it happening, and if it comes down to money and how much money one person can bring in the organization, sometimes what the people in the organization put up with just to keep that person there with them so that they bring the money, but the toll it takes on everybody else working with them,
It's
and the
toxic.
toll, it's toxic, and then they don't realize that it actually has a ripple effect because that person stays, but you have other people who leave and who might be good for the organization, but they leave because they can't stand the situation anymore. And then they take that reputation with them on the market. So nobody who is in the right mind or talented or somebody that you would want to hire would then come and work for you for as long as that toxic person is still there.
Yeah.
So
So
it's
true.
more than just it's more than just one person. It usually goes with, it aligns with the organization goals, and that is even more concerning, I think.
Now, here's our number 7.
Wow.
This one is an interesting twist because I always say how you read it and how you explain it. And
Mhm.
you'll know what I mean here. Persistent and verifiable and equitable treatment. Now, there's an obvious one, right? Diversity and inclusion, but it's also the gaslighter may misdirect and blame the gaslightee for being the cause of their own victimization. So that's why I'm saying this. There's 2 ways this can be looked at. It's either the obvious of the diversity inclusion that we see a lot, people talk about,
Yeah.
or it's the person saying and blaming, being what we call the victim, right? They're playing victim, that
Mhm.
you're the cause of all of my problems. You are the cause, and using it in a way of inequitable treatment. That's still
Yeah.
considered gaslighting, folks, because the person isn't taking what I say, you're at cause for your own actions. They're basically
Yeah.
deflecting it to someone else and using it
Mhm.
in those terms.
Yeah. It's never their fault. It's always someone else. And
Yep.
again, we go back to what I think is, what made me realize that this has a lot to do with, aggressive behavior and passive behavior, and how being passive just because you don't want to disturb anything or anyone, or you don't want to upset people, that actually turns you into a victim at work or at home, wherever you are, but we're discussing work right now. And then you get to talk to somebody who's aggressive and they blame it on you because you're it's your fault. It's never theirs. Somebody who is aggressive will never say, oh yeah, it's my fault, sorry. No, they will never say that.
And as we kind of sum up all these different signs, here's what we want to do is kind of think about it in perspective. Again, I'm going to go back to the perception is projection, because we always,
Mhm.
all the information that comes in, we're telling our own stories. We're distorting it, we're deleting it, we're doing all these different things in our brain. And some of you might be going, gaslighting, gaslighting, gaslighting. And it may not be that way. You might actually be telling stories in your head that actually aren't there. So here's what I'm going to say. And I'm going to channel Nat on this, right? Our communication coach that came is we need to effectively talk to each other. Because how about what if you got the wrong perception?
Mm-hmm.
When can we approach something with curiosity to get clarification? Now, you might be right. I mean, it might be one of these scenarios that are so blatant, you're like, whoa, step up, step back, Jack. But what if you actually made sure you clarified first before you came to your own assumptions?
Yeah.
So I want to
Well,
put this
that is big.
disclaimer that even though we're talking
Yeah.
about gaslighting, I highly recommend that we get curious and clarify before we draw to conclusions here, folks. I think that's
Yeah.
important. What do you think?
I think making assumptions is one absolutely sure way to getting to a communication breakdown.
Yeah.
We see that happening all the time, and it's just we forget. And by the way, what you said here, stay curious, we forget how to do that. And that is, by the way, why we also took all of what we just said, the 7 signs. Some of them seem so normal, and so yeah, okay, that's part of the environment. I'm not questioning them anymore. How come some of them have become part of the normal, have become
You're
part
too
of our life?
sensitive.
How come? No, we just stopped questioning and we stopped being curious and we stopped actually doing something about it and taking accountability for what's happening to us. That's the
Yeah.
thing. We expect you go in an organization and yes, you have that sense of belonging and community and you're part of the group. You're also an individual that needs to be able to, understand what's good, what works, what doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, start investigating and questioning what doesn't work and why that happens.
And kind of going back to the beginning of the show when I was talking about 2021 being the year of action, a lot of you might have already hit your tipping point, as I call it, and you already are in a mode to get out of a situation in your workplace that you're not happy for whatever reason it might be. And I loved this subject because this is one of many things that you see out there. I mean, if those of you that are active on the platform, you see what everyone's talking about. You read all the statistics. I put one out there about like what was it, like 85% or something. I mean, it's pretty high
Yeah.
about people looking for other jobs if you're not going to give them what they need. And so those of you that have reached that tipping point, you've gotten brave, you're feeling confident, and you're looking for your next move. Good for you. Those of you that are not yet confident and you still kind of are doubting, you might be afraid for whatever reason. Maybe it's financial reasons, or you just don't think that maybe you're good enough to go somewhere. I just want to say, you know what? Yes, you are, and if you have to try, because
Yeah.
if you truly are not happy, there's something out there. And I see I get a lot of the feeds from LinkedIn for career coaches and life coaches, and there's a lot of people submitting to get help, and I read all the things that they put in there, and guess what, it's related to this stuff.
Yeah.
So those of you that are employers, I'm speaking to you now. This is your opportunity to change the game and don't lose your great talent. Because don't fool yourself if you don't think they're not looking.
Mm-hmm.
You probably don't get those things that I get. Career coaches, life coaches. People are thinking about their life change.
They're
Don't think it's
thinking
not
about their
happening.
life change and they're also talking about it and they're inspiring each other. So that's one thing. So absolutely, and that has an impact on the organization as a whole and on your reputation on the market and so on. And then what I would also say is that, if you don't want to make the big move right now and go someplace else and find another job, think about how you can change your behavior so that you change the results that you're getting. Because the thing is, if you don't change how you do things, you might never actually get to see different results.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that you can do as you are still in the organization. You can say, you know what, actually I don't like this, I don't think this is normal, I don't appreciate that, and I need to change that. So start one step after another. It doesn't have to be something big if that doesn't make you excited or you're not sure of it. But try small changes in your behavior that actually can get some
Uh,
different
I
kinds of results for
I
you.
love that, Roxana, because we always think it needs to be a big bold move.
Yeah,
Some of you might be the big bold move people, which I call them, the more proactive people. They're pretty like, and they take action. Or you might be more of the reactive person. You kind of need to think through and you kind of need to move through these steps.
yeah,
Either way, it's your life, it's your journey. Do what you need to do to move towards making that positive change.
yeah,
And it doesn't matter how big or small, because at the end of the day, life is too short. I always say time is an asset, and we need to make sure that we're guarding it, because you know what? You blink your eyes, 20 years have already passed, and then you're wondering what happened. And
yeah,
so just think about, and there's a lot of people out here in the community, on LinkedIn community. I mean, you got here, our show is about that, that want to help a lot of you out there that are feeling this way. So I really love, with the LinkedIn community, that they are responsive when you put that energy out in the
yeah,
world and you're
hmm,
wanting some help. So I just
yeah.
want to put that out
That is
there.
so true. Yeah. All right. So as we need to wrap up for today, what is going on in your world, Veronica?
Oh, that's a good question. So, where I am right now is I'm gearing up for what I call Veronica 3.0. I think 2.0, I already went through that
I
phase.
love that.
So, anyways, so for me, it's really about outcome focused. And it started with when I went into the life coaching and we learned about being more outcome focused. And then, of course, Agile was outcome focused. And I'm like, okay, what does this all mean? And I'm actually in the process of kind of what I call it my smash of it together, of really saying, okay, how do we create outcome mindset cultures? And what does that start to look like with Veronica 3.0 as being the business agility coach and this person that really helps with that? That's where my passion is, folks. So right now we have a newsletter that I'm focusing on, and that is the game changing work, because this is part of uh, is that Roxana 1.0, 2.0? I don't know, but it's part of Veronica 3.0. And actually, it started with Veronica 2.0 8 months ago. And so our game changing work, we have a newsletter if you guys want to sign up. And so I actually send a newsletter every week talking about what's going on, and we update on that. So if you join and subscribe, you'll be on that email list. It's on through my Ingenious Agile. So we're kind of in that phase of how do we like create our neutral game changing work. But it doesn't matter. You will get on a list, and you always will have that. So this is something that goes out every Tuesday, by the way. So that's it for me in the focus. I know you have your lead for legacy,
Yeah,
um, which I think is
still going.
awesome.
Well, yeah, and it's revamped a little bit so people get more access and they get to unlock some of the leadership and management courses that I have on the platform that can help them really hone their skills in leadership and development. So we have weekly meetings for this that are live meetings where we do group coaching and masterminding and brainstorming and discuss strategies and planning that people can use for their teams. Because what we do is work with mid to senior managers and also small business CEOs to help them become dream bosses and build dream teams. Because they're the people who want to make a difference, who want to be a different kind of manager, who want to be a different kind of leader, who want to leave a legacy in place. That's why we call it the Lead for Legacy League. Because in my case, I really believe that leadership is all about legacy and it's not about hierarchy. I've seen people who are amazing leaders and have nothing to do with hierarchical structure. So, working with people who are, boots on the ground and really help their teams work, especially through these times of crisis and constant change, that is amazing because the pressure on them is so big.
So speaking of leadership, next week,
Yes.
our topic is leadership within. We're supposed to have our guest JJ.
Yep.
She's a leadership life coach, and
I
she's
can't
going to be talking about this subject. So, and back to your legacy, you're going to leave in the comments of this how people
Yeah.
can actually get there. And then we also have it across the platforms. Those of you that are not on LinkedIn, we always have it in our YouTube description as well. So those of you that are interested in watching the library of all our episodes, you can go to the Game Changing Work channel on YouTube, which will have every show from 8 months ago. So that's pretty cool. So
Yes.
thank you guys for joining us today, and we will see you guys next week, you lovely ladies and gentlemen. And we'll be hitting the next topic again. It will be leadership within with our special guest,
Yes.
JJ.
Can't wait for that. All right. Have an awesome rest of the week, everybody.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.